Take me out the box, yeah. Hey. Take me out the box.
We keep calling every episode a pilot, so
Right.
I think today we had an interview with Ryan Douglas earlier. That might be an official one. This will definitely be an official one. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so we're in the studio with Cristina Mendonsa. If you don't know her, please Google her. She is, I don't know, for us, news watchers, I would say my wife is more of a news watcher. You're a pretty common face here in this area. I don't watch much news. I'm more of an internet consumer of news,
Right.
which is cool because I'm seeing you all over the internet now.
Right. Doing the omni-channel thing now.
Totally. Tell us about you for those few people that maybe don't know who you are.
Well, I'm from Northern California. I've spent 30 years in journalism, started in newspaper, went to radio for a while, and then switched over to television when I was got my first TV job. I was 19.
Wow.
Worked at a couple stations in town, went to Denver and worked at a station out there.
The Broncos. I had to throw that in.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, my husband's a Lions fan.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was back here for 22 years at the ABC affiliate and left there in June. Been doing my own thing since then.
That's a long run.
Yeah, it's actually for nowadays, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't used to be. We've had a lot of longtime people in this market who were on TV for a long time, but nowadays with the disruption in the television news industry, 22 years is a long run at one station.
What's the highlight of like that 20-year span? There's probably a lot.
There's so many. A lot of the travel that they used to do in local TV news was fantastic. I had a great trip to Israel, took a great trip to China, lots of trips down to Mexico. So I think those.
What is that like? Do you go like with a crew? And I've always been fascinated by that because you always see the person on camera, and I always wonder. I mean, at least locally, you see the van sometimes.
Right.
But when you go like to a trip like Israel, is that like an entourage?
Well, no, it was just myself and a photographer that went back then.
Wow.
And nowadays it may even be the journalists by themselves because as technology improves, you know, a lot of those jobs are being eliminated and a lot of those systems are being automated. But I don't know, in my opinion, I guess I'm just old school. In my opinion, if you want an artistic, well-told story, you need a dedicated photographer and a dedicated reporter.
Right. And then nowadays with guys like, and we talked about this the other days, Anthony Bourdain, like I know Spencer's a fan too of like his show,
him.
right? Just the cinematography, you know, they've got to have like some of the best DPs like just on the crew.
Absolutely.
Just capturing,
you get that level, definitely.
Yeah, because obviously he's a good storyteller the way he tells it, but when you have a visual to kind of accompany that, I think it just goes a long way.
And I don't know how long you've been watching him, but when he first started out, he had a very small crew, and you can tell that in the production of the pieces of the shows, and you can see how the quality improved significantly.
This is like prior to CNN, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's amazing now with the internet and technology, how you can sort of, you know, you anyone with a phone technically be, you know, broadcast anything, put out a story. I mean, we're doing it right now.
Absolutely. I have a lot of young journalists that ask me, you know, how do I get started? How do I do stories? And when I was starting out, the technology did not exist for you to be able to put together your own stories without the backing of a large media company. Now, anyone can do it. I mean, you can do it with your phone.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of people have turned excellent stories on their phone. You see, you know, citizen journalists out there doing it as well. So the technology, if you're a journalist, is available right now for you to start filing stories.
Sure.
Form your YouTube, start filing stories.
So what do you think is going to happen to these networks now? I mean, I feel like there's a shift where less and less people watch television, and most people, I mean, I mentioned my wife, like she's pretty religious about it's 10, right? Just to get whatever it is, updates on, even though it's already on the internet. Like,
right.
But I'm just curious what you think where it's going, and people that are studying journalism, what is it that, you know, what avenues are they going to go after, for example?
Well, I think it's all going to be about design because so much of it can be automated now. I mean, they have robots writing news stories for some newspapers now. Wow. So I think it's going to be in the design and in the storytelling. And I think large media companies, they're looking for a way to pivot. It may go to over-the-top programming where you'll have an app and, you know, they'll feed the app with particular shows or newscasts, whether that's local or regional or national. I think there always will be some sort of news presence within each local market, because when something big happens locally, they'll be there to cover it.
Right.
It may not be 5 or 6 stations doing it. It may be 2 or 3 stations doing it as the viewership declines. But there is still, a significant amount of viewers that turn to television. And that plays out right now in advertising dollars. Digital advertising is going up, and more people are advertising digitally. But the lion's share still of the money being made is made through television.
That's interesting. So this show, even though there's no format, it's called Unboxed. And the reason we call it Unboxed is there's this unboxing craze on YouTube of people opening up packages and
watched a few of
toys
those.
and stuff, right? So we want to do here is unbox people. So we want to unbox Cristina. We mentioned, we're teasing you about your last name. You said you have a Brazilian last name. Where'd you come from? What's your backstory?
So my family is from Brazil and the Azores, off the coast of Portugal. So,
wow.
Yeah, so that's where my family lineage comes from. My mom has the relatives in Brazil, and my father has relatives in the Azores. And my mom, too, has some from the Azores as well. And then I've got a dash of Italian in there somewhere.
All right.
Yeah, so that's where my family's from.
Spencer claims to have Italian, too.
It's like, I think we've been here now about 3 or 4 generations. My great grandfather came over and worked a lot with immigrants and trying to get immigrants, acclimated to California, get their citizenship, get their business started. And he actually had a radio show. So I have a broadcasting.
Did that have
any
any influence whatsoever, or just a coincidence?
It was just kind of a coincidence, actually. Once I got into the business, I, found out more about his past, because he was a rancher as well. But at one time, he had a big radio show. So people in the Central Valley, Los Banos, Dos Palos, Merced, Turlock, have approached me at many events and said, I used to listen to your great-grandfather.
Wow.
Or, my parents listened to your great-grandfather. That's how they got their news, because he spoke in their native tongue of Portuguese.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. So how did you end up in this sort of journalism? When did you know that you were this storyteller?
I knew really young. I was lucky. I knew really young that as a little kid, I was producing newscasts in my room with my Barbies.
Oh, wow.
And then as I got older, I loved to write. I got on the debate team. I loved research. I loved everything about telling stories, and I knew that I would do that somehow. I didn't know exactly what medium. I started a newspaper, and then I did radio for a while, and then radio had kind of a disruption in that music radio stations used to all have newsrooms. So I worked at several of those. And then when they started consolidating those, and as you know, music stations don't have newsrooms anymore, those jobs started disappearing. And I thought, well, I should make the jump to TV, because there's still a lot of journalists being hired there. And that's when I did it.
And is anchoring, is that like the top? Is that considered,
You could talk to some reporters who've been lifelong reporters that say, no, forget that anchoring stuff. I don't want to do that. So I don't think it necessarily is. For a lot of people on the trajectory, traditionally, the highest paid jobs have been on the anchor desk. I don't know. I think that might be changing now. But a lot of people who have been reporters want to stay reporters, and that's what they want to do. For me, anchoring and reporting, to try to choose between them is like trying to choose between children. I love them both. I loved my time anchoring, had a wonderful time doing it. I still produce a very small newscast once a week on my YouTube channel, and I do it every Monday. So I'm still producing and anchoring there, but the storytelling, I'm really kind of leaning into that aspect of it as I've expanded my business to not only freelance journalism for network affiliates, but I'm pitching a story now to a sports network. I'm working on mini documentaries, and then I'm doing corporate strategic media to help businesses build out their stories. Because as we all know, every business has to be a media company now. Everyone has channels, everyone has audiences, everyone has platforms.
So could you have done this transition, so to speak, like even 5 years ago, do you think? With the technology? Do you think the technology is one of the reasons why?
Oh, definitely the technology is helpful. But I think beyond technology, you have to have the career capital. I could not have done this at the beginning of my career. I simply didn't have the skills and the career capital built up. But after 30 years, there are so many skills. And after, anyone has done anything for that long, you have skills that you can pivot in a new direction. And I think that it's, a lot of people, they box themselves in thinking, okay, this is what I am. And I'm always going to be an anchor that does a evening show and turn a few stories. And that's all my skills are good for, which is not the case at all, especially right now with exploding platforms and so many people needing content. A journalist's skills as a storyteller, they're really next generation skills. I mean, we have traditionally been a society that's been very left-brained, very into STEM, which is indeed still important, but so much of that can be automated. So much technology can be automated now that you really have to lean into your right brain and creative and to differentiate yourself. And that's the wave of the future is going to be in design.
And what would you tell a young person wanting to get into this field?
Write.
Just write?
Write well, write early, write often. Write as much as you can. With our texting culture, the people are losing the ability to write well.
That's interesting you say that, because obviously with your background, it makes sense that it has to be good, right? First of all, like, it should be, now in the days of fake news, right? It should be truthful first, and then it should be told well. Then there's this other school of thought that, a mentor of mine, you see his face up here.
I love him.
Yeah. Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks a lot about documenting and not creating. So it's a little bit of the opposite. He's saying he said the dirty laundry is out. He said technology has exposed everybody.
Well, I think
so just document everything.
I think he's talking more about authenticity. You want to write, you want to be authentic in whatever you're presenting, whatever art is you're presenting. Writing happens to be my medium. I think that, so many people have because of social media, which is fantastic, it also has shortened our attention spans. And I think that the ability to write well is an art that is being lost. And I think it's one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of great movies coming out of Hollywood anymore. People have lost the ability to craft and tell a good story. And it's those kind of outliers now that create these small films that people fall in love with, that have taken the time to sit down and really write it out well.
When's the last
formula
film that you can think of that you're like, that was written well?
Oh my gosh.
Did you see Whiplash?
I loved Whiplash.
That was good, right?
I loved it. I think my favorite, and I think I'm just a fan of the sci-fi genre, but my favorite movie of all time is The Matrix.
That's a good one. That was on my top 5 for a long time.
I could watch
Can you guess what my favorite movie of all time is? Can you just take a wild guess?
No.
No?
Wait a minute. I didn't look around enough.
You recognize
Back to the Future. Yes, that is a great movie.
That's number 1. That's number 2.
Yes.
So there's a hoverboard here.
I love that. That is a fabulous film, and so many of those films of the '80s I've watched, and I know you've probably watched with your kids. I've watched them with my kids definitely.
That's crazy how that works. Like, once your kids get into what you were into, it feels like you fall in love with it all over again, but
Absolutely.
like tenfold. So it's like, that's when you start collecting stuff. I'm a grown man and I collect toys. So
well, good for you.
But yeah, back to the storytelling, right? Like, The Matrix, that story pretty much can transcend time, right?
Absolutely.
You could have told it 100 years ago and you can tell it 100 years from now. Same with Back to the Future.
Go ahead.
The biggest reason Hollywood's not putting out good films is because America's not the market. They're selling them in China, and it has to be stuff that translates. Like, that's my business. I do a lot of television.
Right.
And like, comedy doesn't translate. Cultural things don't translate. So they're making these like Transformer type movies, which are just a bunch of explosions and no story. That way they'll make $1 billion in China and all over the world.
Interesting.
It's so expensive to make a film now that unless you're going to sell it globally, you can't really recoup your money. So if you look at these amazing films like Lady Bird and stuff like that, they don't make much money, even though we would consider them great, well-written films. In the grand scheme of things, they're lost leaders, So it's the horrible films, these terrible Marvel movies and stuff like that make money, that keep the industry alive.
That's too bad.
Yeah,
I mean, I like a good explosion movie too, once in a while. But you want a little variety, and I just, when I look at the movie selection out there, I mean, there isn't much I am willing to go sit in a theater for these days.
Yeah. I agree. And obviously, well, my kids are still, I don't know what age group. We might actually have kids that are similar age groups. I know Anissa is 11th grade. So you,
Okay, yeah, and so is our youngest as well, Danny.
Yeah, so I think they know each other.
Yeah.
But I still have an 11-year-old. So it's like, what can we watch that's sort of, that's for everyone?
Right.
And the last one, Coco, was like a big deal, like in my house. I don't know if you got to see that one.
No, didn't see that one.
Pixar,
Okay.
Coco.
I do love the Pixar movies. I don't get to see them a lot. I don't have little ones, but
Yeah, I would say watch it regardless.
Yeah.
And just have some tissues with you. It's definitely talking about storytelling.
Right.
The second you forget that you're watching an animated film, that's when you know you're being told a story, a good story.
Right.
So I totally appreciate that side of things. Now, you've been compared, or I guess you've been told that you're between a Maria Shriver and a Mike Rowe. So that's those are kind of two ends of a spectrum.
They are. I mean,
But I like that because Dirty Jobs, like, you know what I mean? It's like the way he tells stories and he just gets in there.
Right.
Is I think his way, right, of connecting with people.
I love that. I think Mike Rowe, he's, one of my, I just love the way he tells a story. I think he's authentic. He's fresh. He's, he's a guy that you want to sit down and have a beer with and have a conversation with. You want to hang out with Mike Rowe.
Yeah.
And I think that if I could be compared to that, that's a fabulous thing. 'Cause I'd love people to hang out with me. That's what I'm asking them to do when I ask them to watch my newscast each week or watch one of my stories or spend some time with me.
Yeah.
So I do like that. Maria Shriver, I think that's a very nice comparison. I think she's a very classy woman. I think she's smart. I think she's empathetic. And I think maybe that's where people connect with her empathy and her. She's just a classy woman. I've had a chance to meet her and chat with her, and I really liked her. She engages people.
So I noticed, or I've been noticing on your social media, you've got, obviously you mentioned all the different things you're working on, but you specifically have a thing called Folsom Focus.
Right.
And obviously we're both Folsom residents. And Folsom, I guess, gets covered a little bit when there's something going on.
Right.
But what's that about? Like focusing on our community.
So I was approached. This was a few months before I left the station. I was approached by a group of Silicon Valley investors who wanted to launch a hyperlocal digital site. So because every company and every city and every entity needs to think of themselves as a media company right now, they all have platforms, they all have audiences, and you can't really count on local media to put stories on the air that you want for your city, right? I mean, they're busy, they have a large region to cover. And so they approached me and asked me if I would turn some stories specific to Folsom so they could pilot this hyperlocal content website. So I said, sure, but I'm not a marketer, I'm a journalist. So I'd have to approach it from that way. And they said, great, fine, you have carte blanche. So they gave me full control over the branding of it, the graphics, the look, the name, all that stuff. And then they just gave me, we sit down once a month and come up with story suggestions. So I'll bring some stories to the table, they'll bring some stories to the table, and we'll kind of hash out a list, and then I'll go out and cover it. So I turn those stories, much like I would turn news stories. Now they are based somewhat on marketing. I mean, they're stories that the city wants to tell that they would hope to get on a local news station. But since that really doesn't happen anymore, that's why they hired me to do it. So that's what I'm doing, turning stories about Folsom, finding out some fascinating things about our city.
Is there anything you have discovered that maybe you didn't know?
Well, I didn't know. I didn't actually know this. Apparently, many months ago, there were reports going into the police station and into local stations that there were these strange lights over the city of Folsom. Like Eastern Sacramento County, people were like, what are these lights? Are they UFOs? What's going on? Well, it turns out that was Intel testing the Olympic drones.
What?
Remember those? Remember the drones at the beginning of
Yeah.
the Olympics that formed the snowboarder and that was like amazing and beautiful? Intel and Folsom developed and tested those right here. And that's what those lights were in the sky. So my next series of Folsom Focus stories coming out, I'm going to talk about that.
Wow.
And talk about and show some of the testing of those drones. So that's one of the interesting things.
Yeah.
We have a lot of international companies based in Folsom that I had never heard of before that I learned about. STEM Express is one of them. They send stem cells all over the world. Another one's inductive automation. They make software that powers the biggest manufacturing facilities in the world, all over the world, right here in Folsom.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then, there's some, I just did a fun story on the 2 rodeo marshals, the grand marshals for the rodeo that's coming up.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, it's a big deal, the rodeo. Here in Folsom.
It's, the small town thing. And they're both in their 90s.
Wow.
And they are both just a kick in the butt. I mean, they're awesome. They're so much fun. And they've had interesting careers. One is like in several halls of fame, rodeo halls of fame. And so, so there's fun stories like that as well, and things that you find out. I toured a haunted building on Sutter Street, which was kind of fun.
Is it the bar at the end, the corner?
It used
the
to be
hotel,
Jaegers.
right?
It used to be Jaegers.
Jaegers.
And now it's Skate Folsom.
Oh,
yeah.
we just tried to eat lunch there, actually. It's actually a cool place.
Yeah, it is
They
a
really
cool place.
did a good job
So
with that.
we toured that. And
Did you do the escape room yet?
I haven't. I've done one before up in Whistler, British
Yeah.
Columbia. I haven't done the one here,
Yeah.
but I've seen the inside. They're
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really
Yeah,
amazing.
I haven't done. I don't even know what's involved.
Oh, it's like it's an hour of fun.
So should you drink before or after?
Both.
drink both. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, how long have you lived in Folsom? Just curious.
22 years.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was living in Denver. I grew up in Carmichael.
Okay.
I went to Del Campo High School
Yeah.
here in town, and went to Sac State. And then
Right.
I was living in Denver working at the NBC affiliate there, and I had a job offer in Philadelphia.
Did you ever meet a Denver Bronco?
I did meet I met John Elway.
Oh my God. That's it.
Yep, I did. I met several Denver Broncos because we would cover them all the time when I was in Denver. Yeah,
That's so cool.
And the city is just nuts. Went to many games. Did a lot more of the CU games though.
Really?
Yeah, I'd cover. They're huge for sports there. So I did.
Are
a
you
lot
more
of
into
sports.
college sports, do you think? Or
Well, I mean, I am watching my Gonzaga Bulldogs in Sweet 16. But,
that was on my list
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, well,
They're still in it?
Yeah, they're still in it apparently. So,
Yeah.
and I've been invited to all these alumni games. That's where I got my graduate degree up in Gonzaga. But yeah, so I'm into sports. I'm really so busy these days
Yeah.
working on my own projects that it's about all I can do to kind of keep up on all of the different topics that I'm covering.
Yeah. Very cool. So part of Unboxed is we have this imaginary box,
Okay.
and we're going to rip it open, and there's going to be something inside that
Wow.
might surprise
I'm excited.
some people.
Okay.
So let's pretend we have this box. I'm going to rip it open, and there's wine corks everywhere.
Oh, wow.
So what is
Not surprising.
what is what is it with Cristina and wine?
Oh my gosh. Wine is art. It is life. I
Wine
love
is
wine.
life.
Like, yeah, I mean, I think I've got a frustrated like winemaker in me somewhere, but I'm a huge fan. So I'm up in Amador all the time talking to winemakers, and I'm interested in more than just if it tastes good. I love to know how they grow it, how they what varietals, why they choose those varietals. So I'm just a fan. My husband and I both are. So we spend a lot of time specifically in Amador. We're big Barbera fans, so we're up there quite a bit. And I think it's
So what's this
sunshine in a
whole
glass.
rosé craze?
Yeah, people love the rosés. I have
Do you
to
think
say,
White Zen kind of ruined rosé?
yeah, I think a lot of people think that's what it is when they look at
Cheap
it.
wine, right?
Right. I've always been a red drinker.
Yeah.
I'm into the Pinot Noirs. We go up to Oregon quite a bit, and I love a good Oregon Pinot Noir as well, and then the Barberas and the Cabs to some degree. Don't do a lot of white. Don't do a lot of rosé. Don't do any sparkling.
Is that like a sin?
No, it's not a sin. I
You
just don't like it. I just
Okay,
don't like it.
Okay. Yeah, because when we go out and occasionally, because we don't drink wine that much, I'm more Zen. I like
yeah.
really
Yeah, the
bold.
Zinfandels are nice, yeah.
And Cynthia, my wife, she's more of like, give me the sweet stuff. Give me a Moscato or a
Yep.
rosé. And occasionally she'll try other stuff. But what's a good, so I'm pretty cheap.
Okay.
And I'm not into wine, but I may spend up to $20, maybe.
Okay.
So it's a decent amount I'm willing to spend for a decent bottle. What would you recommend, knowing that I kind of like Malbec and Zin?
Well, I just picked up a couple of days ago, and it's gone already, so I can't share it. But a Scott
We should
Harvey.
have got some wine, man, for this show.
A Scott Harvey, which is up in Amador.
Yeah.
And that was $15.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, and it was delicious. Yeah.
Haven't heard that one. Earthquake, have you had that?
Yeah, I have had Earthquake. Yeah.
What do you think of
I
that
think
one?
it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that one a lot. They have the Zen Man up in Fair Play as well. Perry Creek. Thank you. Yep. And that's good as well.
Very cool.
That's my wine recommendations.
Yeah. So I found another fun fact on your website.
Okay.
Home exchanger.
Oh, I love
is
home exchanging.
Is this like
Oh, you've got me on a tangent
Yeah,
now.
is this like the movie The Holiday?
Yes, that's exactly
So,
what it is.
so this is real.
This is real.
Okay, you're
and
gonna
I
have to
have done
explain
it.
this for us.
And I'm actually doing another story. I've done a couple of them, and I'm actually doing another one upcoming here. But so you sign up. There's lots of different websites you can sign up on.
Yeah.
You build like a social profile. A lot of people put pictures of their family up. You put pictures of your house. You put pictures of your neighborhood and your area. And then you usually do have to pay like a service. It's a small fee per year. I think I pay like $150 or something. And then you get access to all these other home exchangers all over the world. So no money ever exchanges hands. But you want to go to Paris? You look up 15 people who live in Paris. You email them, say, hey, do you want to come stay in California for a while I go to Paris?
So it's literally exchanging.
Literally exchanging houses, no money exchanged. So
That sounds awesome.
It cuts your price of vacationing by like a third. It's fabulous. And if you think, oh, well, no one's going to want to come to Folsom, or not many people
Yeah.
would want to come to Folsom. No, we're so international. People have family here. They don't want to stay in their family's house. They'd much rather have their own kind of space at the end of the night. So yes, they want to stay in your home. So we've done exchanges to Hawaii. We've done exchanges to British Columbia. Several times to British Columbia to see our daughter. We have a daughter that lives up there, so we're up there quite a bit. Exchanges to Denver, exchanges to Vegas. We're doing an exchange to Australia soon.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's actually, and people always think, well, gosh, I don't want these people in my house. I don't know them. They're going to take my stuff. Well, you're in their house.
That's true.
And no, nothing gets taken.
So does this service, is it like Airbnb? So you'll sign a contract through the website?
Yeah, sign a contract
Okay.
through the website just so that no one pulls out, prematurely, and then you're not able to stay there. You have to get other accommodations. I've only had one bad experience, and the rest have been perfect.
How bad was it?
It wasn't the homeowner's fault. We stayed at a cabin near Yosemite. And it was right before 4th of July. And we checked in. It was a beautiful place. Great, pool table downstairs. Perfect for the kids. Right on the lake. Amazing place. The sun went down. And every spider in the world came out. I mean, the place was overrun. And I think what had happened, we had like a hot streak. And they hadn't had pest control up there. So we couldn't stay there. We were all bit up by the next day. So that was the only bad experience
Yeah.
we had. And it really wasn't their fault.
You would recommend it though,
Oh, absolutely.
especially for us spoiled people up here with like, ginormous houses, right?
European
It's a
families.
draw, right,
I know.
for-
Yes,
yeah.
they want to come and stay, and a lot of times they want to stay in our area because it's a good, middle point between Tahoe,
Yep.
San Francisco, and they can, see lots of different locations. They can drive to Napa, take a ton of day trips. So yeah, I highly recommend it.
Very cool. Well, this has been good. I think I covered all my little investigative little points here. I try to go deep just to give the whole journalism thing a chance here. But
Well, I appreciate the
no,
opportunity.
this has been super, super cool. Appreciate you coming in, chatting with me. And just tell the audience here, we got people watching on YouTube and listening on iTunes and SoundCloud.
Perfect.
What does like the next 10 years look for you?
Well, the next 10 years is hard to say because I think that, in some ways, some of my jobs haven't even been invented yet. So I'm going to continue on with Mendonsa Media, still doing, strategic corporate content building. But that's just one part of the business. I'm still turning traditional stories for networks and affiliates in other markets. I'm working on some continuing education. I'm doing leadership training for a couple of agencies in town. So I think that it will continue to be just whatever interests me. Right now, I'm interested by everything. I think eventually I'll have to cut back on something,
Yeah.
but right now I'm interested in everything. And so
Yeah.
we're turning documentaries, and I'm working with different studios. And to keep up on all of that, I think people, if they're interested in anything I'm doing, they can always listen to my podcast, which is called A Fresh Agenda. We talk to innovators, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. And that's available everywhere. My website, CristinaMendonsa.com, MendonsaMedia.com to find out what I'm doing corporately. And then my YouTube channel, they can look me up on YouTube, and please subscribe. I'm doing newscasts every week there, turning content. And soon you'll hear my voice on the radio on a regular basis. So I'm going to be starting up a partnership with KFBK very soon.
Oh, very cool. This, what kind of show?
It's not going to be a show. I'll be doing some local and regional content several times a day.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. Make sure and follow her and watch her journey now on this new path that she's on. I don't know. I call it, in my head, it's like you've gone from the desk and you've been freed from the desk a little bit.
You know
Right.
what? That's such a great way to say it, because that's exactly how I feel.
And you actually said Spanx and heels.
Yeah, exactly.
But
No more Spanx
just
and
see-
heels.
I just see the desk, the big desk holding you back, and the desk is no longer there, and now the world is
Right. Well,
You know,
occasionally still Spanx and heels. Sometimes I got to
Yeah,
dress up,
right.
but
Yeah.
but now I feel I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like I've got like lightning inside me. I'm just
That's
excited
awesome.
by all these different things I'm
and
doing.
that's how
now.
most entrepreneurs feel.
Yeah.
So
We'll try to
what
keep
would you say to
going.
the last parting words? What would you say to those people watching that are either doing their own thing or wanting to do their own thing and just wanting to sort of, break out?
I would say make sure you're building your career capital. Be rare and valuable, and be so good they can't ignore you.
That's awesome. We got to end it there. That was good. Appreciate you coming in. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
We're out.